Hello, and welcome to the Onward Opinion channel. We're back again for our second video on Black History Month. Today's video actually was requested by a friend of mine of 54 years. His name is Charles Rowland. He said, Onward, why don't you do a video on the role of blacks in science and technology, because this is really important for our young people to know. All they tend to hear about is slavery, and they need to hear more than that. And I couldn't agree with him more. We're going to start back from Africa, where our ancestors came from. And we're starting to talk about things like math, astronomy, and engineering, metallurgy, medicine, navigation. I'm going to start with astronomy because I like it. It's real simple. When I was a little kid, the first thing I wanted to be was an astronomer. So there were some great astronomical findings by West Africans that were made hundreds, if not thousands of years ago. And particularly I want to point out the work of the Dogon people of the Empire of Mali in West Africa, who knew that Sirius, that red star that is a big shining bright star in the sky. We see it near the Big Dipper. And they knew that there were two stars, that it was a binary system, Sirius A and Sirius B. And Sirius B, or Sirius Minor as it's often called, revolved around Sirius A, long before Western astronomers discovered it in 1953. It was part of the rituals of their culture. They knew of Saturn's rings, Jupiter's moons, and the spiral structure of the Milky Way, long before this was known in the West. The Egyptians, of course, knew, and the Nubians knew, that the day was 365 days and a quarter long before the Romans and Greeks discovered this. Clocks were made with moving water and sundials in Egypt and Nubia, or Ethiopia. In fact, Ethiopia right now has its own clock. They start at 6 a.m. And so what we call 7 a.m. is 1 o'clock in Ethiopian time, because their system predates that of the West, though they do use the Julian calendar. Metallurgy. Metal work was done throughout Africa. Some of my favorite metalwork is from Benin, which was a major city in West Africa in ancient times, which I'm very proud to have some ancestry from, according to Ancestry.com. And their bronze work is remarkable. I remember back in 1979 going to an exhibit at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City of Benin bronzes. I used to have a Benin bronze poster on the wall in my home, but it scared my ex-wife for some bizarre reason. And so I took it down to please her. Architecture and engineering. Of course, we know of the ancient pyramids in Egypt, but they weren't just in Egypt. This was an African thing. You go into the Sudan, and no one would try to claim that the pyramids in Sudan were built anything but by black folks, and they're there. You have the great stoneworks in Zimbabwe, in the Congo. You have great works and structures that were built in ancient times. This is the Congo. You go into medicine throughout Africa. You had medicines that were developed from Nigeria and South Africa to other areas. Engrafting, filling of dental cavities, false teeth, what we now call cesarean sections, anesthesia, and tissue catheterization was being done in Africa before the European conquest. Surgeries were performed. Europeans claimed to be the first outsiders to come to the Western Hemisphere. Even arrogantly, they claimed that Columbus discovered the Western Hemisphere, even though people lived there. What a primitive mindset that was. But we know that Abu Bakr II of the Empire of Mali in the 13th century sent an expedition from Mali to the Americas, and the Mexicans recorded their arrival and their stone figurines representing some of the people who came. There's a wonderful book that came out in 1973. I bought it the day it was released, written by a man by the name of Ivan von Sertima. They came before Columbus, the African presence in ancient America. And they didn't discover it. They came and met the people who lived there. So Africa has had a huge history in contributions to science and technology. In the Americas, African Americans have contributed to science and technology. We all hear about George Washington Carver, born in 1864, who did so many things to develop various uses for the peanut that range from soaps to face powder to mayonnaise to shampoo to metal polish and adhesives. But no, he did not develop peanut butter. Can't give him credit for that. Percy J. Allen, born in 1899, he worked with soybeans and developed various drugs and industrial chemicals from soya products. One of his products became instrumental in fighting fires on ships in World War II. It was known as bean soup, and it saved the lives of thousands of sailors. Mark Dean was a computer engineer who developed what we know now as the transistor. Dorothy Johnson Vaughan, who a movie was made recently about, was a mathematician at NASA who did the calculations that helped America beat the Soviet Union in the race to the moon. Mae Jemison was an astronaut who was born in 1956. So she's younger than I. There are many, many more who I haven't mentioned. Dr. Charles Drew, who developed blood plasma. Very, very important. Even Ben Carson, who works for the Trump administration, has kind of been embarrassing. I have to call him Uncle Ben sometimes. But he developed a technique for separating two conjoined twins whose heads were joined. They're called Siamese twins. I have a little bit of problems with that name, but he developed that technique. So we have contributed much to math and science. And this Black History Month, I wanted to make particularly our young people aware of that. And thanks to Charles Rowland for pushing me to do this video. Have a good day. Please check the like button if you enjoyed this. Please subscribe to the channel. I do a video generally every week. And I hope to see you in the next video.